Jannik Sinner has spent more weeks sitting at #1 than almost anyone in this new era of tennis. He has been the most consistent, the most impossible to break player on tour for a couple of years now. And still, when he walks out for a Grand Slam final against Carlos Alcaraz, it feels like most of the crowd is quietly hoping the other guy wins. It is a strange thing to watch. Here is a man who barely misses a ball, who wins tournaments almost mechanically, and yet the affection in the stadium is not really pointed at him. So today I don't want to argue about who is better. I don't want to get into the whole who ends up with more slams debate, because that one could go on forever. What I want to figure out is something else. Sinner is one of the two best players on the planet, arguably the most dominant week to week, and somehow Alcaraz is the one everybody seems to love. Why is that? I think there's actually a pretty good explanation, and I think we have to go back a few years to really understand it. Let me be clear before I start. Because people always misunderstand these videos. I am not saying Sinner has no fans, and I'm not saying tennis crowds don't respect him, because they absolutely do. What I'm saying is that the love for Alcaraz feels like it's on another level, and that gap is worth talking about. I think you have to go back to around 2022 and 2023, when Alcaraz basically exploded onto the scene as this teenage kid who could do everything. He won the US Open at 19, he became world #1 at an age nobody had ever done it before, and the whole tennis world kind of collectively decided that this was the guy, this was the heir. And it makes sense because Alcaraz plays a style that looks like a highlight reel. The drop shots, the impossible angles, the running forehands, the between-the-legs winners, that huge grin when something ridiculous comes off. He plays with his emotions completely on the surface, and crowds fall in love with that instantly. He felt like the natural continuation of the Nadal magic, a Spaniard who plays with fire and joy, and people had already spent 20 years learning to love exactly that. Now Sinner was rising at almost the same time, but his rise was quieter, and it was different in a way that mattered. When Sinner finally broke through and won his first Grand Slam at the 2024 Australian Open, coming back from 2 sets down in the final, it was brilliant, it was gutsy, but it didn't feel like a celebration the way Alcaraz's wins did, and I think part of that is just the kind of player Sinner is. He is clean, he is efficient, he flattens the ball, and he takes time away from you and he barely reacts. He is devastating to play against, but he is calm to watch. Where Alcaraz gives you chaos and theater, Sinner gives you control, and control is harder to fall in love with. Is Sinner less talented? No, absolutely not. I actually think Sinner plays the game so cleanly, so precisely, that he doesn't need the crazy shot as often. He just quietly removes your options until you have nowhere to go. But that also means you don't get the same jaw-dropping moments as often, and jaw-dropping moments are what crowds remember. And then there's the thing everybody knows about, but nobody quite wants to bring up. And I think we have to be honest about it because it did real damage to how people see him. In 2024, Sinner tested positive twice for a banned substance, clostebol, and the explanation was contamination, that it came from his physio through a massage. An independent panel accepted that he wasn't at fault, but the case dragged on, and in early 2025, it ended with a settlement and a 3-month ban that, conveniently or not, didn't cost him a single Grand Slam. And a lot of people, including some of his fellow players, felt like that was too neat, like a lower-ranked player would never have gotten the same outcome. Whether that's fair or not is a whole other conversation, and I honestly don't want to be the judge of it. But you can't pretend it didn't leave a mark on his image. For a chunk of the audience, a little bit of doubt got attached to his name, and once that happens, it's very hard to fully shake it off. So put those two things together, the cooler style and the cloud over the doping case, and you start to see why the crowd tilts the way it does. Alcaraz is the sunshine, the kid who plays like it's the best day of his life, and Sinner becomes, a little unfairly, the guy standing in his way. It reminds me honestly of an older story in tennis, where the flashy, emotional favorite gets all the love, while the more clinical dominator gets respected but kept at arm's length. History kind of repeats itself. But here's where I want to give Sinner some credit, because I think he deserves a lot more than he gets. The way he carries himself is genuinely excellent. He is humble almost to a fault, he barely complains, he doesn't trash talk, and when he loses, he is gracious in a way that's honestly rare. Think about the 2025 Roland Garros final, the longest French Open final ever played, 5.5 hours, and Sinner had championship points and let them slip, and Alcaraz somehow escaped and won it. That is one of the most brutal losses you can imagine. And Sinner handled it with total class. Then a month later at Wimbledon, he came straight back and beat Alcaraz in the final. And instead of gloating, he stood there and thanked Carlos, told him to keep going, praised him openly. That's not a rivalry built on hatred, that's two guys who actually respect each other. And I think Sinner is a huge part of why it feels that way. And that's the part people miss. Because a rivalry this good needs both of them. Alcaraz completed his career Grand Slam at the 2026 Australian Open. He leads their head-to-head, he has the trophy count right now, and he gets the crowd. But he is only pushed to that level because Sinner is standing across the net refusing to break. The reason we got that incredible run of 3 Slam finals in a single year is Sinner. The reason Alcaraz has to play the best tennis of his life is Sinner. You don't get the legend of one without the relentlessness of the other. And honestly, that's worth remembering right now because Alcaraz has been out since he hurt his wrist at the Barcelona Open back in April. He ended up missing both the French Open and Wimbledon. He's already slipped down the rankings, and nobody can say for sure that he comes back exactly the player he was. Wrist injuries can be tricky like that. So the rivalry we've kind of been spoiled with might not just pick up right where it left off. And if there was ever a moment to appreciate both of these guys, instead of only one of them, it's probably now. So at the end of the day, do I understand why Alcaraz is more loved? Yeah, I think I do. He is easy to love, he plays beautiful, joyful tennis, and he never gave anyone a reason to doubt him, but I think Sinner is one of those athletes who gets appreciated properly a bit too late. It reminds me of what happened with players in other sports who were seen as the cold, boring, machine-like winner while they were active, the guy you respected but didn't cheer for. And then the day they stepped away, everyone suddenly realized how special they were. I have a feeling that's going to happen with Sinner. One day people will look back at how consistent he was, how clean his tennis was, how well he handled the hardest moments, and they'll wonder why they didn't enjoy it more while it was happening. Anyway, that's just how I see it, and I could be completely wrong. So let me know down in the comments who you think ages better in the memory of tennis fans, Sinner or Alcaraz. If you enjoyed this one, it would mean a lot if you dropped a like, subscribe for more tennis videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.